What's up, guys? Welcome to From the Logo. Today, we're going to talk about the NBA trade deadline that's quickly approaching and what the Blazers should do, what moves they should make, if any. Colton's going to walk us through a couple trades that he put together on the old trade machine. Some of them, such as Plumlee for Nurkic, just beautiful looking trades.
You
But
just wait.
go ahead and take us through the first one, Colton.
All right. So as you can see on the screen here, this first one is kind of a blockbuster deal. To summarize, the Blazers end up getting DeAndre Ayton and Jay Crowder, and they send off players such as Nasir Little, Nurkic, and Josh Hart. The Knicks are kind of thrown into this deal as well, but I'll explain why. So starting off, sending the Suns are acquiring Nurkic, and then they're acquiring some other pieces in Cam Reddish and Nasir Little. And you might think, would the Suns really give up DeAndre Ayton for that kind of stuff? Well, here's the thing I got to add: the Knicks will be sending a first round pick in this deal because they are acquiring Josh Hart. So the Knicks this year actually have three protected first round picks. One of them's from Dallas, and that's the one that would be included in this trade. So the Suns would be getting a starting caliber center at a way cheaper price point, literally half the money that DeAndre Ayton's making this year. And they would get two prospects in Cam Reddish and Nasir Little and a first round pick. So they're not just giving away DeAndre Ayton for nothing. The Blazers, meanwhile, would be actually acquiring basically a finals caliber front court. DeAndre Ayton and Jay Crowder have both started in NBA finals. DeAndre Ayton's has been the third to fourth best player on an NBA finals team. Jay Crowder, that's a good fifth starter on an NBA finals.
Yeah.
Jay Crowder hasn't played for the Suns all year because he wants to start. Well, he would start here. That fixes the Blazers' size problem. That fixes a lot of different problems that the Blazers have. Jay's not like the biggest power forward, but solves a lot of problems for the Blazers. It also keeps Anthony Simons. So there's still, that super trade with Simons that you could make, or you just try and keep making it work. But you've surrounded Dame and Simons with size. You've got Grant and Crowder, and then Ayton. The last part of this that needs to be talked about is from the Knicks' perspective. Josh Hart is a widely, accepted trade piece for the Blazers this upcoming deadline, right? Hart is a good commodity for teams. The Knicks have three first round picks, as I said, in this draft. They're acquiring a guard that helps them win. The Knicks have been playing good this year, but Josh Hart would give them a lot of winning, a lot of hustle, a lot of stuff that they need. That first round pick, that's not a pick that they necessarily need. So that would be the one going to Phoenix. They also get, some kind of salary throw-in pieces, but the main part of this thing for the Knicks is Josh Hart for the first. And that's kind of, in my opinion, how the trade breaks down. Isaiah Hartenstein gives the Phoenix Suns another backup. He's only kind of thrown in there for salary mostly, but he's also another piece that the Suns get for depth and size. That's kind of what I think this trade's kind of honestly realistic because Cam Reddish is known to be a trade piece that the Knicks are willing to trade too. So this gives kind of a lot of teams what they want and need and not for a crazy price tag.
I like the end result of the Blazers ending up with DeAndre Ayton and Jay Crowder. I mean, honestly, just Jay Crowder is someone that I think a lot of us have been watching for a long time, thinking that the Blazers have needed something like that. Honestly,
He's a dog.
I kind of hoped that Nasir would take that role a little bit. I mean, he's not as big and such, but he kind of has that same intensity, or at least he did. But of course, Nasir's had the paper bones problem. So I do like the end result. I think it makes a lot of sense to move Josh Hart. He seems like the piece that's most likely going to go because it sounds like he wants to be a free agent this summer anyway. And that kind of brings in some of the issues in that I don't know if Josh Hart would want to sign a long-term deal with the Knicks. And I don't know if if that would make sense from their end. I think that I've been saying this for months that I don't think that DeAndre Ayton's going to stay with Phoenix. I think Phoenix is looking for an opportunity to ship him out. And like you said, Jay Crowder hasn't been playing. So, that's not a huge loss for them. And they are definitely getting some pieces there to build around. I'm just not sure about the Josh Hart's a tricky one because he's coming up on his free agency. No one's going to want him unless he's going to stay. And, unless they have some plan to waive him or free up salary space. But yeah, that's my main concern.
I think you guys both know which side of the fence I'm going to come down on this one. Maybe I'm just overvaluing DeAndre Ayton. Maybe he's really not as valuable as I see him being, and that the Suns don't value him that as much as they should, or as I do, I guess. But I think that this trade, the Suns they lose it. It's hard to give up a number one overall pick and just not really get all that much in return. You get a first back, I guess, and Nurkic, Cam Reddish, Nasir Little. There's a few prospects thrown in there, but I think that the Suns, they're gonna want more back for Ayton. He's a former number one overall pick. Like you said, he started in an NBA Finals. They're obviously on a downslide this year. They're struggling, and there's seems like some off the court issues with them, but it just doesn't seem like enough of a return. If I was the Suns GM, if I was James Jones handling these trades, I would reject it. But Jay Crowder is an interesting piece in this too. I think a guy like that would help the Blazers a lot, just surrounding a physical, big dude who's not necessarily the tallest, but plays big, can knock down the 3-point shot. He's kind of in the same sort of stage of his career that Damian Lillard's at. He'd be a good partner in crime, I think, for both Lillard and Jeremy Grant. But getting 8-2, I think this would be a steal of a trade for the Blazers if they could pull it off. The other two teams, I mean, as far as the Blazers go, they would win the trade for sure. I could see the Knicks taking or leaving this trade. It seems like they get some value back for not really giving up all that much, although it might be kind of a wash for them. It really seems like the Blazers win this one, maybe a little bit too much.
And that could be slightly a homer trade, but the things that I kind of want to point out is Ayton has definitely struggled this year. A lot of Suns fans are kind of fed up with it, and the main problem with Ayton currently is that contract that he signed. He's making 31 mil a year, and as a center who isn't like the best player on the team, like he has struggled. And I know that there's been a lot of reports still this year that Ayton and Monty Williams have butted heads. If the Suns want to compete for longer, this deal still gives them starting center plus pieces plus a first. Like, our team's going to be giving them that center back that can start, that is way cheaper. Nurkic, like I said, is way cheaper than Ayton. It breaks down his contract into movable pieces or pieces that might grow. So that's kind of the spot that it's at. Like, you could be right. They could value him more than that, but with him struggling, I think a change of scenery would benefit Ayton a lot. So maybe this isn't enough, but I think that with the first and with the prospects and getting a starting center back plus another backup, I don't know how much other teams are going to give up a ton of picks for a center making 31 a year.
Yeah, it's true. Like I said, maybe I'm putting more value on Ayton than the Suns front court really has him, and that he's worth. One other just tiny little thing I'll mention is that a lot of the prospects that they're getting back, besides Nurkic and Hartenstein, they're young wing players. Cam Reddish and Nasir Little, both kind of those wing players. And what with the Jay Crowder issue already at hand, it kind of seems like the Suns are flush with young wing players. I mean, they've already got Bridges and Cam Johnson, so it might almost be kind of too many of those same sorts of players. Although, having a bunch of young wings is not necessarily a problem to have. It might be more of a luxury. But yeah, I don't really know if they would be super excited about this deal, this haul that they're getting back. They'd probably explore other options for trading away their former number one overall pick.
You could be right. You could definitely be right. I think it's a move the Blazers should consider making if it's possible.
Oh yeah, if the Suns would agree to it, this would be an absolute steal for the Blazers. Getting, like you said, a championship front court, young stud of a center who could play pick and roll all day with Damian Lillard, and defender, big body, physical dude who can shoot the three. I mean, that's like everything that the Blazers could ask for in that trade.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's quite as much of a steal as you're making it out to be, Curb, but I would do it. I just think maybe Aiton's not as good as he used to be, and I don't know if he's going to get better.
What is he
But
like, 24, 25?
yeah, and it kind of seems like he's already on a downslide. But a change of scenery might make a difference, and I'd like to see him try to play some games with Dame. And I think Crowder would be a great benefit to the trade. So yeah, I would do it, and I think it helps the Blazers. I don't know if the other teams would do it, but definitely worth exploring.
The negative with Ayton is that he plays, old school center basketball. He's not much of a stretch big. But I mean, what are the Blazers giving up in that regard? We got, Yusuf Nurkic, who I guess is starting to explore his 3-point shooting finally this year.
40%.
He's no stretch big though. At the end of the day, he's not taking his guys out of the paint. He's not capable of hitting, like 4 or 5 every game, or that teams are adjusting their whole defense for that.
I don't want to spend too much on this trade, but quickly on Ayton. I know he thrives. We've seen him thrive with Chris Paul at the height of his powers. Chris Paul has fallen off, and Booker has been injured most of the year.
Yeah.
So you're kind of buying low on Ayton, but also his contract and his problems with Monty Williams is why you're given the opportunity, is my thoughts. Summarizing everything up. So he might, like a pick and pop with Dame, like he can hit that jumper at the mid-range like nothing. Him and Dame pick and pop would be game over. So that's why I would want to do it. But kind of moving on to the next trade I have. If you look at the screen, Simons and Dame backcourt.
Ooh, Goran Dragic.
Yeah,
the dragon.
I know. So here's how this deal kind of breaks down. Chicago is included for one purpose only, and Nasir is again trade bait. Chicago is included because hopefully Nasir is a promising enough young prospect. He's been shooting really well lately and been playing well lately, and he's got a good contract. Hopefully that is enough to entice Chicago to remove the protections on the Blazers picks. That's kind of the reason he's there. Just say, hey, we'll give you a young wing prospect for free. He's playing pretty well and he's cheap for 4 years if you just give up the restrictions on this pick. That way we can open up our pick cash, and along with Anthony Simons, we would be sending 2 first-round picks to the Raptors for OG Anunoby. We also kind of get pieces from the Bulls as well, because the Bulls are, I think this scenario plays out if the Bulls kind of go into tank mode. The Bulls have been really awful this year. So they've kind of got 2 veteran players that the Blazers could kind of need. This kind of is even more, in my opinion, a pie in the sky trade, just because the Blazers get size to back up Nurkic and Dragic, and they really need another playmaker off the bench. And then, of course, the prize in OG. You're giving up Simons. Simons has been playing.
I just want to quickly point out that you said Chicago is trash this year, and they have 1 more loss than the Blazers. But I get what you're saying.
But a lot of the problems along with with Chicago is they're betting on like players like Zach LaVine. His knee has been an issue. Lonzo Ball, when they were really playing well last year, he was playing. Lonzo, he might not even play in the NBA, it seems like, anymore, because his knee's been messed up. DeMar DeRozan's like older than Dame. So Vujovic, can you rely on Vujovic? I can't even pronounce his name right now, but that's my point. Like their core is really crumbling, and I think that Bulls fans are kind of ready to move. So in this instance, you're giving them a first-round pick for Nasir Little for almost nothing, because they're still going to get a first-round pick. It just allows the Blazers to move first-round picks for OG. When you get OG, he's like a defensive player of the year candidate. He slots in, gives the Blazers the size, and then the Blazers kind of pick up 2 cheap bench pieces that could help them along the way. The Raptors, they get a lead guard because for all intents and purposes, it sounds like they're ready to move on from Fred VanVleet. So I'm assuming that they'd have another deal in the works for Fred VanVleet to get more assets. But Simons has started to play better, right? I still don't think him and Dame fit together, but the last week or so, Simons has been passing the ball. He's been shooting way better than he was for a stretch. And I think as a lead guard, along with, Scotty Barnes and Siakam, that's a really good start of a core. And if they can trade Fred VanVleet and maybe get like a big out of the deal, Toronto could be right back there, and Simons, I think, is a good guard. And then the Blazers might have to give up 2 picks or hopefully 1 first-round pick because they're pretty comparable young players. There you go. I think this trade helps the Blazers. I think Chicago might do it just because they're getting a prospect for free, basically, because they're still going to get a first-round pick. And then Toronto, try and negotiate either 1 first-round pick along with Simons or 2. I wouldn't want to give 2, but that's this trade for me.
Yeah, there's nothing about this trade that I would scoff at. I mean, getting OG could be a pretty big difference maker, but it's not quite the like blockbuster of the other one where it would completely change our starting 5. I am ready to move on from Simons for the right piece. I do think it makes sense, with OG on the timeline. He could definitely come in and play with Dame in a way that would probably make more sense than Simons. I'm not that excited about the other pieces in the trade that the Blazers are going to get.
Goran Dragic.
But I think giving up little, it's a little bit. That's honestly probably the part that I'm more questioning is giving up little than giving up Simons, because I do still think Little could develop into a really good player. But to get OG now, it's probably worth doing. So yeah, I think it helps the Blazers a bit. Maybe not as much as completely transforming our front court, but it helps them. And it helps them now. And I think every team would see this as pretty realistic.
Yeah, I like the trade. It's I've thought since pretty much the NBA draft that Anunoby would be a good target for the Blazers. You just add another, more size, another kind of forward player to play alongside Dame. Like you said, you really think defensive player of the year candidate? I just looked up his stats, like over 2 steals a game. I didn't really realize he was in that territory, but that would be him and Jeremy Grant. That's a lot of length, a lot of size. Both can shoot the ball pretty well. It does suck having to give up both Simons and Nasir, but I think the upgrade that you're getting there with just the starting lineup is probably worth, throwing in that bench piece and Nasir. And I mean, his health, man, it's been the question his whole career. It's like, who knows how much we're even going to get from Nasir going forward. Glass bones, paper skin, Nasir Little. And I actually think that the 2 guys that you're getting with them, I mean, they're not huge needle movers or anything, but they're 2 veteran players, a backup point guard, which the Blazers desperately need. It's kind of fills that position that we've mentioned before about how once you get past Dame, there's just no ball handler, no proven point guard on the team. You add him and you get, a third big guy to pair with Nurkic and Drew Eubanks, which is desperately needed as well. With Nurkic going down the last few games, it's been pretty apparent that it's like Eubanks and then Eubanks or bust. If he's not having a good game, we're going to really struggle from inside and we're getting out rebounded. So adding a guy like Drummond, who's, a certified rebounder, obviously on the downslope of his career, but still he's certified rebounder, big body inside. I actually like the 2 pieces that you're getting along with Anunoby. And like I mentioned before, since the trade deadline, I think Anunoby was kind of who I targeted, and I saw that maybe coming from trading our pick for Anunoby, but Simons, I think I'd rather trade him than Shaden at this point.
Yeah, totally. And you nailed a lot of the reasons why I think this would be a pretty big move for the Blazers, really under the radar. If there's one thing that Drummond is in this day and age, it's a rebounder. I mean, and he dunks the ball. Nurkic cannot really lately be relied on as that fully healthy center all the time. When he's healthy, he plays good sometimes he doesn't, but he's still a starting caliber center. Drummond can come in and be a starting caliber center for you, and then you have Eubanks off the bench still. The Blazers still need another playmaker. That's solved with Dragic. He's not in his prime. Obviously, he's older, but he's at least an experienced playmaker that can play in the playoffs when we need to get more passing on the floor and Dame needs a rest. He can do that. He can definitely do that, and he can shoot. I think in this instance, you're short about one shooter, and I think a follow-up move you could be looking at the San Antonio Spurs with Doug McDermott, sending them a couple second-round picks, and then you've got kind of a complete bench still. You got GP2, Dragic, Drummond, and McDermott. You kind of transform the bench on the cheap. And Chicago, I still think, like you said, Riley, Nasir's a good prospect, and that kind of you're kind of freeing up your picks and you're kind of transforming your bench along with your starting lineup. So is it a crazy like superstar player acquisition? No, but you're getting depth, you're getting size, you're getting a playmaker, and you have to give away Simons and Little because you got to give stuff to get stuff. So I think
unfortunately, I've heard rumors that Simons is like untouchable. I don't know exactly what that means, but basically I've heard that the Blazers are looking at trading anybody except for Dame, Simons, and Jeremy Grant. It's like, I don't know.
I don't want to give up Sharp. I don't want to give up Sharp. I know the Raptors want Sharp because he's from Canada. I don't want to give up Sharp. And so I'm hoping that Simons untouchable thing
first.
I'm hoping that the Simons untouchable thing is to drive up his value. And to be fair, Simons has been playing pretty well, like I said, lately. Yeah. I mean, you can't just say you're going to give him away. So hopefully that's part of that. So
playing chess while everyone else playing checkers.
Yeah. I like the trade. But
what if Toronto would do this deal exactly as it is, but only with Shaden thrown in?
Well, there have to be salary changes. So because I don't think you can trade Shaden for OG, so it would look a little different. And if so,
Shaden and Josh Hart.
I mean, yeah, I don't think they would take. Yeah, it would probably be Shaden and Josh. I think that actually would work, but then I would be like, okay, you don't get any first round picks. Like
it still doesn't solve the size issue either because you're just swapping Hart for Anunoby. Anunoby's maybe a little bit bigger than Josh Hart, but you're still not getting rid of the crux of the problem, which is Simons and Lillard, 2 point guards playing in the starting.
Hart slots in at the 2 instead. That's exactly. And then you've transformed your lineup.
Yeah, that would be a lot bigger, a lot more defense. You still got shooting out there. I mean, Anunoby's a good shooter. He's no slouch from 3.
To be clear, I would do this trade with Anthony. I would not do it with Shaden Sharp. Even if we could just swap out Anthony for Shaden Sharp and for getting salaries, I still don't think I'd do it. I'm kind of ready to move on from Anthony.
Hey, Shaden has started to put it together on defense the last couple of games. He's staying in front of his guy, and the last couple of games too, I think it's Gary Payton's influence. He's kind of like coaching him, taking him under his wing.
I like Gary Payton so far. He's added a depth element to the Blazers that we haven't seen in a number of years, where a perimeter defender, you can throw him on Ja Morant and he'll actually do a job on him. He's not going to stop him every play, but he makes a job.
Well,
good one, Colton.
Are you guys ready for the ultimate trade of all trades?
So I don't think I guess all 3 of us said we'd do this trade. Realistic. I think it's probably pretty realistic. So yeah, I guess we'll go down to trade number 3.
All right. Well, you guys wanted a superstar acquisition, right? So as you can see on the screen, the Blazers would be acquiring the legendary Portland Blazer legend, Mason Plumlee. So here's my thinking on this. I know. I'm a pessimist Blazer fan sometimes, and I'm like, this is probably what it's going to look like, what we're going to get. Here's why this is an interesting trade, at least. Nurkic's deal, 4 years, $15 million, and it goes up, right? And man, he's been hurting his calf. I don't know. So you're locked into Nurkic for 4 years. When you're trading away Nurkic for Plumlee, basically you'd be trading away Nurkic for Plumlee and PJ Washington. PJ Washington is a good starting caliber power forward, and he's big. So I kind of view that as like a 2-for-1 where yes, Plumlee is Plumlee, but he's on a 1-year deal. He's actually having a career year from all of his stats. He started shooting left-handed. I don't know if you guys have seen that. He's shooting left-handed and he's hitting jumpers now. He's kind of transformed his game. He's not my favorite player, okay? But you're getting the power forward along with it, and then you're getting off of Plumlee's deal after this year. Plumlee is having a career year right now. The other pieces I've kind of thrown in as well from Miami. Miami in this instance would be sending a first-round pick for Josh Hart. They've already, it's in the media out there that Miami's interested in Josh Hart. Josh Hart, I'm sure, would like to re-sign in Miami because it's Miami. So we're getting a first-round pick in this deal. You get Gabe Vincent, who's that shooter and distributor. Okay, so that's another piece.
He might be my favorite player in the trade.
Wade Denman is another big. That's just kind of a throw-in big, but you're getting a first-round pick. Again, keeping in mind, along with this, I think PJ Washington is a really underrated player. That's what I'm saying. And I think I'm acquiring him from there. And then you can look, now that you've gotten out from under Nurkic's deal, you can look for a future upgrade at the center spot after this season. So I'm kind of looking at this as you're getting a good young power forward, you're getting a first-round pick, you're getting out from Nurkic's deal, you're getting a shooter and a distributor for this year, you're still getting a starting caliber center. You're losing Josh Hart because you're going to lose Josh Hart for nothing if you don't do it. And then Miami gets a couple more players to fill in for salary, but their main prize for Miami is Josh Hart. But they're sending a first-round pick. So, yes, it's not quite a great move that fixes all the Blazers' problems right now, but it gives you another piece with the first-round pick. You can get a power forward that's a starting caliber power forward, and then you can look to upgrade, and it gives you some bench pieces with Gabe Vincent and Dedmon if he sticks around. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. I kind of want to get out from the Nurkic contract if at all possible, and this allows us to do it.
So I kind of see this as it seems like a long-term move to me, like in terms of trying to build the team, for not this year, maybe not even next year, but maybe the year after that, which the longer you go down that track, the more scary it gets as far as Dame's window starting to close. But there's things that I do like about it, and there's things that I don't like about it. I agree that we have to move on from Josh Hart, because if we don't, he's going to move on from us. And I don't necessarily disagree that moving on from Nurkic might be, a good move. I'm not into the Plumlee thing necessarily. And from what I understand, the Blazers aren't really looking to do any deals that don't make the team better and a playoff contender this year. I don't know if that's smart, and I don't know if that's just posturing, but that's kind of what seems to be getting out into the media, is that the Blazers want to put a playoff team around Damian Lillard and Anthony Simons. That's the narrative. And, that this doesn't do that. So if that's their goal, then they probably won't do it. But, for a long-term deal, maybe it would make sense.
My biggest question about this trade is, would Charlotte do it? It doesn't really seem like a great deal for them. They're giving up PJ Washington, who's a great young player, and they're getting back, a big contract center who's injury prone and definitely on the, downward slide of his career. And it's not like Nurkic is going to get them out of the, hole that they're in, unless there's the ability to waive him for cap space or something like that. It doesn't seem like a move Charlotte would be interested in to me. For the Blazers,
have you seen the kind of move Charlotte makes?
You're just banking on
no. Okay, so let's be honest. To go from Nurkic to Plumlee is a downgrade. It definitely is. Charlotte, in my opinion, always makes these weird, let's try and win moves, and they get players that are slight upgrades. Look at the contract they gave Gordon Hayward. I mean, Nurkic might not be a Gordon Hayward level player, but he's definitely an upgrade from Plumlee. So I'm just looking at it from the side of you're getting Plumlee, or you're upgrading Plumlee into Nurkic, and then you're just giving another player away. The other players for Miami are just salary that don't really see the floor for the Hornets.
Yeah. Plumlee, though, is on, at least according to this, is on a 1-year deal. Nurkic is on a 4-year deal. So it's a lot more of a, gamble for them moving forward. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but if you're banking on ineptitude in the Charlotte front office, then maybe it'll work. But yeah, I don't really. As far as for the Blazers go, I mean, I would probably make the move most likely because I think PJ Washington, I think he has a future for sure, and he's something that the Blazers desperately need, a big, forward who can hit the shot. He's a good stretch big man, but also seems like plays well down low. And Plumlee, I mean, I don't think he's as much of a downgrade from Nurkic as we think. He's, the thing was when we traded Nurkic, I love that this trade is Nurkic for Plumlee, by the
I
way.
know. That's why it was there. It's beautiful.
I think, when we traded Plumlee for Nurkic, like right as soon as we got Nurkic, it was Nurk fever. He was going off. He was getting like 30 points, 15 rebounds, just absolutely playing at the height of his powers in Portland. And since then, over the years with injuries and such, there's been a pretty big drop off from him. So I don't really know if it would be quite the downgrade that we're seeing. I mean, obviously a slight downgrade. He's not the passer that Nurkic is, although he's no slouch from passing. He sets the screens. He does all the dirty work. Plays physical. Not really an offensive presence, but I mean, Nurkic isn't. He has games where he's decent on the offensive end, but he can't be relied upon. So I think that I would take the deal if I was Portland. I would not take the deal if I was Charlotte. Miami probably would take it. It seems like Josh Hart would fit in their culture pretty well.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that both of the other teams might do the deal. Obviously, the Charlotte's giving up a lot of players, in this deal, but they do make those moves where they make these kind of small upgrades to like, I don't know, try to win now or something.
Just be stupid for us, please.
But honestly, I don't think the Blazers are going to do it. The honorable William McAllister denies your trade. I just don't see it as something that the Blazers want right now. And maybe they should, there would be a totally different direction for them to think about 3 years from now. But from what I understand, they want to win now, or at least try. They think they can. I mean, we've talked about this. They're 1 game in the loss column out of 4th right now. They're not that bad compared to the rest of the West. So they think that if they make a couple of small changes, probably Josh Hart for more size, honestly, is kind of where their thought process is, and maybe Nurkic, swapping Nurkic, that they could move up to 4th, 5th place in the West, and it's not totally unrealistic. So I don't think the Blazers do it. I think maybe both of the other teams would. Personally, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't really know if it's much of a downgrade as you're making it out to be. I mean, we're not exactly getting any like stud talent in return, but we're getting 2 starters for giving up 2 starters, and I mean, we're gonna lose Hart anyway.
And a first-round pick for future dealing.
I think, yeah, and PJ Washington. I mean, he could actually help us this year. He's having a good year. It's not gonna like get us past the first round, but we're not getting past the first round either way. So
I could just see this being as something where we're getting another backup center with Dedmon. That's more size, and then Gabe Vincent is a good shooter and a playmaker. I could see like maybe not this exact move, but keep an eye out for a move like this from the Blazers where it's like we have to kind of analyze it because our first rounders are still locked up from Chicago. If we want to improve the roster and we want to move on from Hart and Nurkic, this is something that I looked at that's like maybe you can acquire some pieces that you maybe didn't think about the first time. And then Plumlee, make like Kirby said, maybe it's not that far of a drop off where you can still compete for the playoffs this year. You get PJ Washington slotted in as your power forward. In the offseason, you make that final move to try and upgrade your center. And then where are we? And with that first round pick, and maybe we made the playoffs, so we have all of our other first round picks. This is kind of another like stepping stone move that looks kind of weird. And the Plumlee for Nurkic thing was just poetic, obviously. I had to throw it in there because it was just time is a full, goes full circle here. But I just thought it was one of those where, okay, we didn't get a big name and changes were still made. What do the Blazers do? You're right. Charlotte might not do it. It might take a couple second rounders to grease the wheels. And if you look at like the Hollander's analysis, I kind of ignore that because a lot of it has to do with per efficiency.
He's an idiot.
Well, like per efficiency is always skewed by like big guys. They always, because rebounding is, and like all the guys on the right side of the screen like almost never play. So it's like, why is that -9 wins? So I think that you're probably right. The Hornets might not do it, but I would probably do it, but I would sigh. And I would say, is this really what we could do? And
I like the size. I like Plumlee, Washington, Grant, those three guys surrounding Simons and Lillard. It's obviously not getting us out of that problem, but you're getting a lot more size around them in the starting lineup.
And that is why, as the GM, I would fix all the Blazers' problems, and I should be hired when Cronin gets fired for not trading Simons. Well, let me know what you guys think of these trades. If you guys can think of any trades the Blazers will make to upgrade their roster, post them down below. Let us know.